He was tied to a traffic sign, staring at the road like he still believed someone would come back for him. A 3-month-old German Shepherd puppy, soaked, shivering, rope cutting deep into his neck. Just waiting. Cars flew by, throwing muddy water over his tiny body. But he didn't flinch. He just watched like loyalty itself, refusing to die. People slowed down. At some point, one even took a picture and then drove away. No one stopped. Not one. When I finally pulled over on that empty highway, he didn't bark or growl. He just looked up at me, those wet brown eyes asking the one question I couldn't answer. Why me? That's how I met him. The abandoned pup who still wanted to be a hero. And I swear from the way he lifted his head, I already knew he was born to save. He didn't fight when I cut the rope. He just sagged forward like his tiny body had finally run out of reasons to stay upright. I wrapped him in my jacket, felt the tremor running through his ribs. He smelled of wet asphalt and fear, the kind of smell that stays in your clothes long after the rescue is over. I whispered something. Maybe you're safe now. Maybe I've got you. I'm not sure which one was more for me than for him. The German Shepherd puppy didn't move, just pressed his nose against my chest as if to make sure I was real. When I carried him to the truck, his paws dangled like he'd forgotten how to use them. Rain drummed against the windshield, soft but relentless, and I kept glancing at the rearview mirror to make sure he was breathing. Denver lights blurred behind the glass, every red traffic signal stretching into a reflection across his soaked fur. I'd seen stray dogs before, hundreds of them, but this one, there was something behind his silence. Not fear, not defeat. Something deeper. Waiting. At the shelter I pushed through the smell of bleach and wet fur. The night shift volunteer raised an eyebrow. "Another one?" she asked. I nodded. The puppy opened one eye, faint and cautious, then licked the corner of my sleeve. His first gesture, small but deliberate. I swear in that instant I felt a pulse of trust, like he was testing if the world might still deserve it. They handed me a towel, but I didn't let go. I just sat on the floor with him in my lap, feeling the weight of that small life warming up against me. "He's young," someone said. "Maybe 3 months." I could hear the hum of cages, the distant barking, the clinking of metal bowls. He flinched at every sound. Then from the far corner a sharp, commanding bark echoed through the room. Steady, confident, trained. Every head turned, but he didn't look scared this time. His ears perked. His eyes followed the sound like he recognized something in it. Purpose. That's when I realized he wasn't done. And somewhere down that hallway, a voice was already calling him toward who he was meant to be. The next morning, the shelter felt different. The air was heavy with disinfectant and the distant echo of barking dogs. He lay curled on a blanket in the corner of his kennel, still damp, still watching. The German Shepherd puppy didn't sleep like normal pups do. He kept his head up, listening, every sound turning his ears. When I walked in, his gaze followed me, not afraid anymore, but calculating as if trying to read the room. Then that same bark from last night came again. Sharp, rhythmic, confident. A Labrador Retriever pup in the training wing. Bright yellow coat shining even under the dull light. He was learning to track scents for the Canine Search and Rescue Unit. The trainers called him Copper. The name fit. Steady, warm, a spark in motion. The shepherd stood up slowly, pressed his nose between the bars, eyes locked on the Labrador. It was the first real spark I'd seen in him. Copper trotted past, tail wagging like he owned the place. He barked twice, short and playful. The shepherd flinched, then barked back, quiet, hesitant. But there was something in it. Everyone in the room laughed, but I didn't. I saw purpose. For a heartbeat, that trembling puppy looked alive. I sat beside his kennel and whispered, "You hear that? That's what you could be." He tilted his head, one ear raised, one folded like he was thinking it over. The sound of Copper's training echoed. Search, find, Yumi, reward. And each time the shepherd leaned closer to the bars. When I finally opened the gate and let him out, he didn't run. He just followed the sound, step by step, his tiny paws slipping on the tile. The Labrador barked again, and he answered louder this time, chest lifting like pride was finally waking up inside him. That's when I knew this wasn't just rescue. It was transformation in real time. One brave pup finding his reason through another. And somewhere deep in that small, shivering body, A future rescuer was being born. Denver, Colorado looked gray that morning, the kind of sky that presses low and makes you feel every sound twice as heavy. The German Shepherd puppy followed me down the narrow hall, his paws slipping on the polished floor. Every step was hesitant, but his eyes, those eyes, were locked on the door where Copper had gone. The Labrador's voice echoed from the training yard. Short commands, whistles, encouragements, and somehow that sound was pulling him forward like a compass finding north. "My name's Ryan," I told him quietly, more to fill the silence than anything else. He blinked, tail twitching once. "No fear, just curiosity." I crouched, scratched the side of his neck where the rope had rubbed his fur raw. "You're safe now, little man." He leaned into the touch, awkward and unsure, but it was the first time he didn't flinch. Outside, the world smelled like wet concrete and morning coffee, and the rescue team was setting up scent drills for the K9 trainees. Copper stood tall beside his handler, nose down, muscles tensed. He was every inch of future K9 Labrador Retriever dog. When the trainer threw a scent tube, Copper shot forward, precise and unstoppable. The shepherd puppy froze, mesmerized. Then, without command, he followed, tiny paws pounding after a hero he didn't know yet. "Hey, he's not part of the drill," someone shouted. But Copper didn't mind. He circled back, barked once, and nudged the shepherd with his muzzle. They both looked up at me, one trained, one lost. And for a moment, I couldn't tell which one was teaching the other. That's when the trainer laughed softly. "Guess you've got a shadow, Copper," I smiled. "No," I said, watching the shepherd's trembling tail start to wag for the first time. "He's got a dream." And right there in that muddy yard, the rescued puppy took his first step toward becoming something more than abandoned, something brave. The next week turned into a quiet routine of small victories. The German Shepherd puppy woke up earlier each day, stretching long legs that still trembled under their own weight. I started letting him tag along when we set up the scent drills in the open field behind the shelter. He wasn't supposed to be there, but every time I tried to close the gate, he slipped through and sat near Copper like a silent apprentice. Copper's trainer, a tall woman named Grace, noticed it too. "He's watching," she said one morning. That's how the best K9 dogs start. Watching first, acting later. The words hit me harder than she probably meant. Because this wasn't just some dog with instincts. This was a survivor trying to find a purpose. We started giving him small tasks, fetching cones, carrying a rope, sitting on command. The first time he obeyed, Grace whistled softly. "See, he's a natural." The puppy wagged his tail so hard he lost balance and fell into the mud. Copper barked once, a sharp, friendly cheer, and the shepherd jumped right back up, chest puffed like pride itself had weight. But his past still lingered. Whenever a chain rattled or a metal door slammed, he froze. His tail dropped, eyes wide, breath caught in his throat. I'd crouch beside him, whispering, "It's okay. You're safe." Some days he believed me, others he didn't. One afternoon, a storm rolled in over Denver, Colorado. Thunder cracked across the hills, and Copper barked back at it, fearless, playful. The shepherd, though, pressed himself into the grass, trembling. I wrapped my arm around him, feeling his heartbeat race against mine. He looked up at me, eyes wet. And for a second, it wasn't fear I saw. It was memory. That's when I understood. Whatever had been done to him had tried to break him, but hadn't. He was still fighting quietly to become something stronger. And in the distance, Copper barked again, a sound like hope calling him forward. That night, the shelter went quiet earlier than usual. The rain had stopped, but the wind carried a chill that crawled through the cracks in the old building. I stayed late, checking the locks, refilling water bowls. The German Shepherd puppy followed me from room to room, tail low, paws barely making a sound. Copper was already asleep in the training wing, his steady breathing echoing like calm itself. I turned off the main lights and stood in the doorway, watching the shepherd pup circle twice before curling up on his blanket. For the first time, he looked peaceful. I almost left then, but something in me said, "Stay." So I sat on the floor beside his kennel, the hum of the exit sign buzzing above. That's when I noticed his ears twitch. Outside, thunder cracked again, not far away this time. A second later, the lights flickered. The storm had looped back. Then I smelled it. Faint, sharp electrical smoke. My stomach dropped. I ran to the hallway. The old fuse box near the laundry room hissed and sparked. A glowing wire snaked along the wall, lighting up a pile of towels. Within seconds, fire raced up the corner. I shouted for the night attendant, grabbed the extinguisher, but the smoke came faster than I could think. Alarms blared. The dogs barked, panic spreading like the flames. I sprinted to the kennels, unhooking latches, calling names, coughing hard. "Come on, move outside." They scattered toward the open door except one. The shepherd pup wasn't at his blanket. His cage was open, empty. I turned toward the training wing. Through the haze, I heard it. Copper's bark, frantic, trapped behind the closed gate. And there, just before the smoke swallowed the hallway, a smaller voice answered back. The German shepherd puppy was inside. He hadn't run for safety. He'd run toward the fire. The smoke hit me like a wall. My eyes burned, lungs clawing for air as I pushed back into the hallway. The sprinklers hadn't kicked in yet. Old systems slow to react, and the fire moved like it had been waiting for a chance. I could barely see a few feet ahead, just the flicker of orange bleeding through the haze. Somewhere behind it, Copper was barking, steady, rhythmic, terrified. And then that smaller sound again, a sharp, desperate yelp. The German shepherd puppy. I dropped low, crawling under the smoke line. My palms burned on the floor, hot and slick with ash. "Copper, buddy, hold on." I coughed into my sleeve, heart slamming in my chest. The metal latch of the training wing door was red hot, searing through my glove when I grabbed it. I shoved my shoulder into it until it gave way with a groan. Inside, the air shimmered with heat. Copper's crate had collapsed from the weight of a fallen beam. Sparks hissed down from the ceiling. And there, just a few feet away, was the shepherd pup. Teeth clenched around the metal handle, pulling with everything he had. His paws slipped on the wet concrete, but he didn't stop. He yanked again, whining through the pain. "Hey!" I shouted, crawling toward him. "Get back!" But he wouldn't. He turned his head just long enough to look at me. Those same eyes from the highway. But now they burned with something fierce. Determination. Purpose. He pulled once more. The latch popped and Copper stumbled free. The German shepherd puppy backed away, coughing, his fur blackened with soot. Copper barked at him, frantic, almost scolding. I grabbed both by their collars and pushed them toward the exit, the heat biting into my arms. We were almost there when the ceiling cracked behind us. A heavy beam split and crashed down, blocking the doorway in a burst of sparks. The sound was deafening. I fell forward, dragging the dogs close. The smoke swallowed everything, and all I could hear was the heartbeat of two dogs pressed against me, one trained to save and one born to. The world turned red and black all at once. The beam had slammed down only inches from us, scattering sparks that hissed across the wet floor. I could barely hear over the roar, but I felt Copper's body pressed against my side, trembling yet solid. The German shepherd puppy stood a few feet ahead, staring at the blocked doorway like he was calculating a way through it. His chest heaved, soot clinging to every inch of his fur. I coughed hard, throat raw. "Stay with me." My voice cracked, useless against the noise. The air was thick, tasting like metal and smoke. I looked for another exit. Anything. But the flames were everywhere, crawling along the walls, climbing higher with every breath. The shepherd pup turned back toward Copper, then toward me. He barked once, short, sharp, deliberate. Then he moved, squeezing through a small opening near the wall where the old wiring ran. It wasn't big enough for me, but for him, maybe. I could see daylight flickering faintly beyond the smoke. He looked back at us, eyes bright, even in the chaos. "Go!" I shouted. "Get out, boy!" He disappeared into the dark. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd lost him too. Then came the sound. The faint clang of metal hitting tile, and a gust of cool air rushed through the room. The puppy had found a side hatch, nudging it open just enough for light to spill in. Copper barked and pushed forward, leading the way. I followed, dragging myself low to the ground, lungs burning. The moment we broke through, the air hit me like a wave. Cold, real. The night outside glowed orange against the clouds, sirens wailing in the distance. I stumbled onto the grass, clutching Copper, coughing hard. Then I looked back. Through the haze, I saw him. The German Shepherd puppy standing in the doorway he'd opened, smoke swirling around him like a ghost. He looked exhausted, shaking but alive. And before I could reach him, another crash echoed behind him. The roof caved in. The door slammed shut. The light disappeared. For a moment everything froze. The sound of the roof collapsing swallowed the night, and I just stood there staring at the flames eating through the building. Copper barked wildly beside me, pacing at the door, his voice from smoke. I couldn't breathe. Not from the fire, not from the smoke, but from the thought that he was still in there. The German Shepherd puppy, who had already been abandoned once, now trapped again because he tried to save another. "Stay here!" I shouted at Copper, though I knew he wouldn't listen. He pressed his body against my leg as I pushed back toward the entrance. Fire crews were just arriving, shouting orders, dragging hoses, light flooding the yard in blue and red. A firefighter tried to grab my arm, but I tore free. "There's still one inside," I yelled. "A puppy." They pulled me back anyway, forcing an oxygen mask to my face. I fought it, eyes locked on the door, and then through the heat and chaos I saw movement. Not flames, shadows. Two of them, one large, one small. The door gave way with a groan. Smoke poured out, and then Copper broke loose, darting forward. Despite the shouts, he ran straight through the haze right into the collapsing wing. The rescuers went after him, and I stumbled behind them, half-blind, heart ready to burst. Seconds later, Copper came staggering out, dragging something small and blackened by the collar. The German Shepherd puppy. He collapsed into the grass, barely conscious, tiny chest moving, but shallow, faint. Copper dropped beside him, licking his muzzle, whining softly. The firefighter who caught up to us lifted the pup in his gloved hands and pressed an oxygen mask gently over his nose. "He's breathing," the man said. "He's fighting." I sank to my knees beside them, the grass wet under my hands, tears mixing with the ash on my face. The puppy's eyes fluttered open for a split second. Dull, unfocused, but still there, still alive. He'd gone into the fire to save another dog, and somehow he'd made it out. They rushed him into the emergency van parked outside the shelter. The lights painted his soot-streaked fur in flashes of red and white. His breathing was ragged, ribs rising and falling like they were fighting gravity itself. I climbed in beside him, ignoring the medic's protest. I wasn't leaving him again. Not this time. He looked so small on the stretcher. Just a German Shepherd puppy, barely a few months old, who'd faced down fire like he'd been born to do it. His paw twitched every time the siren wailed. The medic slipped an oxygen tube over his snout, the hiss of air mixing with the rhythm of his heart monitor. "Name?" she asked, scribbling notes on her clipboard. I hesitated, my throat tight. "Valor," I said. "His name's Valor." Copper sat quietly on the floor, head resting near my knee, eyes fixed on the little one. It felt like he understood what that name meant. The van hit a bump, and Valor's paw fell limp off the side of the stretcher. I caught it, holding it gently in my hand. The pads were rough, burnt in places, but he still squeezed back weakly. When we arrived at the clinic, everything blurred into movement, nurses, lights, commands. They carried him through the doors, leaving me standing there, soaked, shaking, covered in soot. I could still smell the smoke on my clothes, in my hair, in my lungs. Hours passed before the vet came out. "He's stable," she said softly. "Weak, but stable." "He saved the other dog, didn't he?" I nodded, unable to speak. She smiled faintly. "Then he's exactly where he belongs." I walked into the recovery room, and there he was, hooked up to monitors, tiny chest rising and falling. Copper lay his crate, guarding him even in sleep. I sat down beside them both, my hands trembling as I reached through the bars to touch Valor's paw again. "Brave doesn't even begin to cover it," I whispered. Outside, the first light of dawn crept through the window. The fire was out. The shelter was gone, but the little German Shepherd puppy who wanted to be a rescue dog had just proven he already was one. For the next few weeks, the clinic became our second home. Valor slept most of the time, his tiny chest wrapped in gauze, his front paws shaved for IVs. The German Shepherd puppy had burns along his flank, but his spirit never dimmed. Every time the door opened, his ears twitched. Every time Copper walked in, his tail tried to move. The doctor said he was lucky, seconds away from collapse when Copper dragged him out. But I didn't think luck explained it. Something stronger had pulled him through. Maybe purpose. Maybe the same invisible thread that makes rescue dogs run toward danger instead of away from it. The local news came filming the ruins of the shelter. They asked me what happened. I told them the truth. A 4-month-old abandoned puppy saved a trained canine Labrador Retriever dog from the fire. I didn't need to dramatize it. The facts already sounded unreal. The clip went viral overnight. Comments flooded in calling him the little hero, the miracle shepherd. Donations poured into the shelter's rebuilding fund. People sent blankets, food, toys, all addressed to Valor. The day he finally stood on his own 4 paws, the whole clinic clapped. His legs shook, but he stayed up, staring at Copper like he was reporting for duty. I crouched beside him, rubbing his neck gently. "You did it," I whispered. "You really did." After his final checkup, I signed the adoption papers without hesitate. After his final checkup, I signed the adoption papers without hesitation. Valor didn't belong in another kennel. He belonged out there with us. The rescue team took him in as an honorary trainee, letting him follow Copper during drills. He watched, learned commands, mimicked movements. His tail wagged every time he heard a siren like he was waiting for his turn. And one day he got it. A missing hiker in the woods outside Denver. Copper led the search, but it was Valor who caught the scent first. The German Shepherd puppy, once left for dead, guided us straight to the man. Alive but weak, trapped under branches. That night, under a Colorado sky full of stars, I looked at him sitting proudly beside Copper, chest out, eyes bright with purpose. He wasn't abandoned anymore. He was exactly who he was born to be. A rescue dog. Sometimes I still hear the echo of that night. The sirens, the crackle of flames, the faint cry of a small puppy who refused to give up. Every time I walk past the rebuilt shelter, I see the plaque on the wall dedicated to Valor, the brave pup who reminded us what rescue truly means. And I can't help but smile. This little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important nonprofit rescue groups really are. Without them, countless animals like Valor would never get a second chance at life. He went from a terrified stray on the highway to a symbol of courage, proof that even the smallest life can make the biggest difference. Now when Valor trains with Copper, he wears his own little vest. Rescue trainee, it says. But everyone here knows he's already earned a title far greater than that. Because courage doesn't come from training, it comes from heart. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's pet care. It's late nights, small victories, and the unspoken bond between a human and a life they refuse to give up on. So if you're watching this, and your heart's beating a little faster right now, that's your sign. Share Valor's story. Help another puppy find their way home. Join our The Animals 2.0 YouTube family.